I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. We're also joined at council table by Kirk Biotti, our Laconia City Manager, as well as Glenn Smith, our Finance Director. Recommendations for appointments to boards and commissions. The Appointment Subcommittee met on March 20th, 2024, and interviewed candidates for appointment or reappointment to the city boards and commissions. The subcommittee met again on March 25th, just prior to the city council meeting, to review the results of those interviews in preparation for presenting their recommendations to the full council at this meeting. A motion was approved on the 25th to table this item. So right now, I'm wondering if there might be a motion to take it off the table. So made by Councilor Phelps, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is it a roll call on taking things off the table, or can we just vote? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. This item is now off the table. And I would look to Councilor Cheney, who is part of the Appointment Subcommittee, to make the recommendations of his committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The following individuals are strongly recommended by the Appointment Subcommittee for appointment or reappointment to the city's boards and commissions. Linda Perry, appointment to the Putnam Fund. Janet Bro, appointment to the Putnam Fund. Randy Haas, reappointment to the trustee of the trust funds. Dean Anson, reappointment to the Conservation Commission. Scott Ringer, reappointment to the Heritage Commission. Laura Ringer, reappointment to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Gail Ober, appointment to the Planning Board. Scott McWilliams, appointment as the Planning Board's representative to the Lakes Region Planning Commission. Tyler Carmichael, appointment as the city's representative to Lakes Region Planning Commission. Bruce Conner, reappointment to the Library Board of Trustees. Matt Johnson, appointment to the Library Board of Trustees. Deanna Geyer, reappointment to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Brian Wolf, appointment to the Planning Board. And Sally Sessler, reappointment to the Library Board of Trustees. And I haven't had a drop to drink, I swear.
Maybe that was the problem.
Yes, sir. I'll know better next time.
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
Mayor.
right, you should. Right now, I'd be looking for a motion to move to approve the appointment or reappointment of the candidates to the city's boards and commissions as presented and as recommended by the Appointment Subcommittee. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Bogart. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. I'd like to say thank you to each and every one who not only was appointed but applied for these boards. It is critically important to the function of our Laconia city government that we recruit people and retain people on our boards, and thank you to the Appointments Committee, Subcommittee, for the work that they've done. Kirk, I'm looking for the comprehensive financial report on the agenda.
It's under audit presentation number 14.
Oh, there it is. It's tucked
Agenda
right
item
in there.
14.
Okay. I'd like to move agenda item number 14, audit presentation, forward right now, as we have people waiting online to make the presentation. I think all of you have, you may all have in front of you this, your CAFRA, right? So.
Good evening, everyone. Glenn, I didn't know if you were going to do an introduction or...
Well, I think you should introduce yourself as who you are. Well, look at all that.
Kind of-
Where do you go?
Who you are, the firm you work for, and the nature of your work that's associated with the city.
No problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My name is Scott McIntyre. I'm a partner with Markham LLP CPAs. With kind of Andrew Gordon, an audit manager with our firm. You may recall from a year ago, we informed the city that we've had a long relationship with the city as Melanson CPAs. And it was in January of last year, 2023, that we were merged with Markham, a much larger national CPA firm. Basically, unfortunately, there's no students going into accounting right now. So we needed to avail ourselves of a larger firm and some of the resources they have so that we can continue to provide auditing and consulting services to cities, towns, and school districts in the state of New Hampshire. Andrew and I are here tonight to present the
Katie,
results of our
get the
fiscal year
volume, it's-
23 audit. I know Andrew spoke with Glenn today. We have on our calendars that this meeting was tomorrow night, and all of a sudden today, we realized it was today, so, I'm a little casually dressed today for a city council meeting to begin with. But we're happy to be here and give you a quick overview of our audit of your financial statements. I did prepare a brief PowerPoint, because I think from a remote standpoint, it's probably a little bit more conducive to walk through the results of the audit and all of the required communication. When I say required communication, our professional standards require that we communicate certain things to your body under the charge of governance. And I've basically put that into a PowerPoint presentation. So if I can begin to share my screen, I'll walk through everything, and then I will try to answer any questions that the mayor and council may have.
Would you, Scott, would you prefer if we waited until the end of the presentation for questions, or would it throw you off track if counselors raised their hand and offered up a question in the midst?
I would prefer them at the end predominantly because I won't be able to see counselors raise their hands.
Okay.
And while he's,
Glenn or someone to allow me to share my screen would be wonderful.
Great. Glenn, were you saying something?
yeah,
It's the eclipse.
that must be it. While we're getting through to this, I'll just say that he's probably gonna be referring to page numbers within the CAFR, ACFR. The audit is the meat of the annual comprehensive financial report, the ACFR. Our page numbers are at the middle of the bottom of the page. Their page numbers are in the lower right-hand corner. So.
Scott, I don't know if you can see what we're looking at right now, but we've got some technical difficulties here.
It seems like perhaps you do, but Andrew Gordon just messaged me internally here, and he has the ability to share his screen, so Andrew, if you can share the screen, I can begin the presentation.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, brilliant. There you go.
All right, just, we've introduced ourselves in this presentation, really should not be thought of as a standalone presentation, but this does summarize the highlights. I guess I say that caveat in there, so that you do, so that the council and members of the public, will in fact read the report. Just going to the next page though, Andrew.
Yep.
A little bit about the audit process. I'll tell you exactly what takes place. It involves us performing a number of procedures to obtain evidence about the amounts and disclosures that are present in your financial statements. It is our responsibility to express an opinion on the financial statements that are the responsibilities of management. Oftentimes, people look at these documents and they think they are Scott or Andy or Markham's financial statements. But it's not the case. They are the city of Laconia's financial statements, and they have the responsibility of management. No opinion is expressed on the effectiveness of the city's internal controls. We do evaluate the internal controls in order to design the test work that we need to do in order to be able to form an opinion as to whether or not your financial statements are materially fairly presented. Moving on, Andrew, the results of the audit. This is on page 1, which is our independent auditor's report. It probably goes on for 3 pages. It tells you about the basis of accounting, not the basis of accounting, the auditing standards that we followed in order to come up with the basis for our opinion. And in our opinion, your financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects, in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for local governments here in the United States. Technically, that's called an unmodified opinion. In most circles, it's thought of as a clean audit opinion, no modifications, or to go back to the technical name of it, it's an unmodified opinion. Our opinion is without modifications, so your financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. On to some of the other required disclosures, the required communications that we must make in accordance with our professional standards. Our standards require you to report if we had any disagreements with management over the application of generally accepted accounting principles, and I'm happy to the report to the mayor and council, and the management on how to apply generally accepted accounting principles. We detected no material corrective misstatements. That's a very positive attribute right there to the audit process. It is essentially saying that we did not need to make any material corrections to your financial statements. Non-attest services. This is a relatively new one, but an important one for communication purposes. An audit is considered an attest function in accordance with our professional standards. We are attesting to your financial statements being prepared and being in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. We also, as part of our engagement with the city, as is the case with virtually all of the audit work that we do in New Hampshire and in New England, we perform some non-audit services. What do we mean by that? We assist the city in converting from the modified accrual basis of accounting, which the majority of the ledgers are kept on a modified accrual basis. We convert that to the accrual basis of accounting when we merge in your capital asset records and your long-term debt records, create the long-term perspective or government-wide financial statement. It's a very, very common practice that exists in New England. Outside of New England, it's usually not the case, but inside New England, there's only a handful of local governments that actually end up preparing their own financial statements. Generally, that's a non-audit service that audit firms provide to our clients. And again, in accordance with our professional standards, we are required to make that disclosure. We are also required to talk with you about significant estimates that exist in your financial statements, and there are a handful. The most significant in terms of the largest, in terms of the size, would be your net pension liability and your net OPEB liability, and there are also related accounts to those. There are deferred outflows of resources and deferred inflows of resources related to the net pension liability and OPEB liability. Also, the useful lives of your capital estimates are an estimate. I can tell you that based on our audit work and auditing hundreds of communities inside of New England, the significant estimates and the assumptions that go behind your pension liability, your OPEB liability, and the depreciation of your capital assets is in line and actually quite standard. So on the next slide, Andrew, we do have a few recommendations that were included in the back of the report this year. One is to improve the timeliness of some cash reconciliations. And go maybe one step beyond that is to create a citywide reconciliation. The city does a very good job with most of its bank accounts, but there are a couple that just need to be brought into the fold. The school department has some of its own bank accounts, the airport has some of its own bank accounts, and of course the city has many bank accounts, and I'll also go one step further and talk about many of your trust accounts. One citywide reconciliation really would benefit Laconia greatly, so that it is essentially, I'm a little old school here in my talking, on one piece of paper or one spreadsheet, if you will, all of the accounts where there is some decentralized work, whether it be in schools or the airport or with the trust funds, centralizing this into one comprehensive citywide reconciliation would really benefit the city being able to see how it all works in the end, and that it can go to its general ledger and see that every single account in there is in fact reconciled in one location, not spread around the city. Also, we're recommending to improve the timeliness of your ambulance reconciliations. Here you use a third-party vendor. It's not just the inflows and the outflows of the cash, but it's the accounts receivable that they track on your behalf. What's in the general ledger of the city should on a monthly basis be matched up with the report from the third-party vendor. And on the next slide, Andrew, jumping into the financial statements, first an overview of everything here. As we discussed, the auditor's report after the introductory section of your ACFR is our auditor's report. And again, I wanted to point out that it's an unmodified opinion, and that's also known as a clean audit opinion. Your MD&A, or management's discussion and analysis, follows that, and that provides the reader with financial highlights for the year. After that are your dual perspective financial statements. A little while ago, when I was talking about the unaudit services that we provide, I talked about converting, from a modified accrual basis to the accrual basis of account. That's because in your financial statements, there's really two sets of financial statements. Only one set of books, but two sets of financial statements. The government-wide financial statements, they provide a long-term perspective on the accrual basis of accounting, which is the basis of accounting that businesses would typically use. Your fund financial statements for your governmental funds, very short-term perspective. We use a modified accrual. Very, very similar, slightly different. Your note disclosures, if anyone is interested, disclose the difference between modified accrual and cash basis. Following those two sets of financial statements are the footnotes, as well as required supplementary information, sometimes referred to as RSI, and other supplementary information, sometimes referred to as SI. Getting into some of the numbers, and Andrew, maybe if you could jump in here and just look up what page the general fund unassigned, the balance sheet is on, and I'll begin to talk about this a little bit. You know, this is an excerpt of your management discussion and analysis of your unassigned fund balance June 30, 2023, compared to a year ago.
Page 17 of the report.
What page?
17.
So we're looking at the number in the right-hand corner?
That is correct.
Yes.
The unassigned fund balance is probably, and I say that based on 35 years of doing work like this, is probably the first number that most readers are going to turn to when they want to understand the financials and the creditworthiness, if you will, of a city's financial statement. The unassigned fund balance at June 30, 2023 was just under $3.7 million. A year ago, June 30, 22, it was just over $3.2 million, so a $480,000 increase. Now, we put a sentence there, and this sentence is an exact excerpt of something that's in your MD&A, your management's discussion and analysis.
Thank you.
This sentence is designed to help you, the reader, understand why there was a $480,000 change. And it doesn't, I'm not going to read it, but what drives change in your unassigned fund balance are positive budgetary results. And Laconia had positive budgetary results of about $1.6 million. You see a detail for that on page 70 of the report. And if you subtract it from those positive budgetary results, $826,000 that the city used to reduce the tax rate in fiscal year 23. I understand 1.6, you subtract 800,000, you're at a net 800,000. I understand that the unassigned fund balance changed by just under $500,000, but the budgetary results softened by the use of your fund balance to reduce the tax rate gets you pretty close to the change there. And that really is the design of this chart in your financial statement. The statement here is to help the reader understand that you had very positive results from a budgetary standpoint. $1.6 million, softened by $800,000 of fund balance that was used. It approximates the $500,000 increase in your unassigned fund balance. Moving on to the next slide, Andrew. This goes on to the long-term perspective basis of accounting. A lot of times you just say a couple of words about this, but we also feel that there's a professional responsibility to point out to users of the financial statements the long-term perspective, and that in our opinion, no conversation about a local government's financial statements really is complete without a quick conversation about the net pension liability. The net pension liability represents your proportional share of the New Hampshire retirement system's overall unfunded liability. Now, we've got a little trend here, a four-year trend of what Laconia's liability was and the discount rate that was used. The discount rate is the assumed rate of return of earnings. Way back in fiscal year 2020, the system used a discount rate of 7.25. Since then, clearly they backed it down to 6.75, and that's where most systems we see nowadays is around 6.75. Now you can see, I recall, because I looked up my notes from the FY22 audit, we discussed that the FY '22 net pension liability, dropped significantly from the prior period. I don't remember if I said that perhaps for FY '23 it would go back up, but clearly it did. And the reason for that, before I get into the reason for that, I want to look at the first item underneath the dollars and percentages. The June 30, 2023 liability is measured as of June 30, 2022. Permissible under the standards, and thankfully, the standards permit that, or nothing would ever get done. But I point that out because through June 30th, 2022, investment earnings of the New Hampshire retirement system were not where they had expected they would be. And that is the reason why your proportional share of the overall liability jumped from just under $49 million to just over $63 million. Is that for the period under audit, FY '23, or more specifically for the measured period of the liability, FY '22, the investment earnings of plan assets was substantially below what was estimated. Now, I want to put this in a little bit of some perspective on the net pension liability. Because if I just stop there, I don't think I'd be saying, I don't think I'd be leaving you with a proper perspective. The city is all contributing to the state of New Hampshire. Your annual contributions are based on your payroll. It's not based on a $63 million liability. It's based on payroll. And also, it's important for the reader to understand that the New Hampshire retirement system is projected to reach full funding status in 17 years. So what does that mean in relationship to a $63 million liability? I can say it this way. If you keep doing what you're doing for another 17 years, and all of the assumptions materialize, you'll bring that $63 million liability down to zero. And the assumptions that the system uses for their actuarial valuation, I believe, are sound assumptions. On to the next slide, Andrew. Really, that was kind of just a quick overview of the FY '23 audit, the results of it, which were generally very, very good. Some of the key high points, the unassigned fund balance. We did feel the need to talk about the long-term perspective, financial statements and the net pension liability. So things to keep an eye on going forward. GASB, which is an acronym for the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, they are the board that, the accepted board that sets the rules by which you do your accounting and financial statements side. They relatively recently, I think it was about a year ago, issued their 101st statement. It's on compensated absences. It will be applicable to you in FY '25. That will require you to really remeasure and really reanalyze all of the vacation and sick that's earned by all city employees. And the estimated liability will be done significantly differently than it has been through to date. And also, in about 2 weeks' time frame, the GASB is expected to vote on expected to have a final vote on a new financial reporting model. So, what does that mean? That means the long-term perspective financial statements. We didn't get into the key pages of that, but the long-term perspective financial statements in future reports may change. Your fund financial statements will likely not change at all. They made a decision last August that they were going to leave the governmental fund statements as they are and remove anything to do with changes to the fund financial statements from what will be the final product here. So again, this is a very, very quick overview of our audit of your financial statements. Kind of a quick disclaimer here that this presentation should be looked at in conjunction with the actual audited financial statements and the related disclosures. But again, to summarize the quick presentation here is our audit of your financial statements went well. There were no material adjustments. We did have a couple of recommendations on annual activity and creating a citywide cash reconciliation so everything can be seen in one place and not in a couple of different places. General fund balance sheet, we looked at that, we saw almost a $500,000 increase in that key unassigned fund balance account. It represents a strong balance sheet. Pension liability is there, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on that. And with that, Andrew, if we can maybe stop sharing the screen and you and I can try to answer any questions that the mayor and council may have.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. There we go again. One question I have for you, you made a couple of recommendations last year, if I'm not mistaken. And I wish I had them written down, I don't. But the recommendations you made last year, where do we stand in regards to those recommendations you made?
Well, one of them dealt with trust funds, and really that issue has been molded into the citywide cash reconciliation. When I was speaking about that, I indicated that the school department has some accounts, and the airport has some accounts, and you have the trust accounts. Progress was made in the trust area, but I think putting everything together in one centralized reconciliation would really, really benefit the city. It goes to the completeness of things. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay, thanks. I think for me anyway, the pension liability is something that is a number that can be staggering, and certainly over the past 4 fiscal years, we've seen some wild swings in net pension liability. The assumptions that are being made right now, you say, are sound. I know at one point there, when we looked at the unfunded liability statewide, there were some assumptions that were not sound, as I understand it. Maybe can you offer up any of the assumptions that are made right now? Do you have that at your fingertips, or if not, that's okay, but.
I do. The biggest assumption is the assumed discount rate. And
Perhaps you could explain that a little bit for those of us who maybe aren't working with this every day?
the discount rate is essentially what the plan expects future earnings to be. What you expect to earn on the portfolio of assets. And as we saw on that particular slide at the quick presentation, 4 years ago, the system used a 7.25 or 7.25% assumed rate of return on its investments. I can tell you nationally, there was really quite a push in the actuarial community, the audit community, and the pension plan community, that was thought to be too high. Hampshire retirement system reduced it to 6.75. I think it was a necessary move. And one thing, and I'm scrolling down to some of the other assumptions, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I want to talk about some of the others. But before I talk about some of the others, I want to finish the thought on the investment rate of return, having it been dropped to 6.75. In your footnotes, there's a footnote that describes a lot of, I'll just call them deferred outflows and deferred inflows of resources. And they deal predominantly with pension. There's some that deal with OPEB as well. One of those deferrals is set up as it's similar to an asset. Not technically an asset, but it's called a deferred outflow. It's the same effect of an asset. And that exists when actual earnings do not meet expectations. And for the period ended June 30, 23, which as measured, it was really June 30, 22, Laconia's proportional share of that deferral on investment earnings was about $2.4 million. Now, that may sound like a lot, but I will tell you, in terms of the overall plan, I don't think it is. It's a relatively small number in relation to the overall liability. And what that tells me is that the 6.75 assumed discount rate is fairly sound. I say fairly sound because it's never going to be exact. But if Laconia's proportional share of the investment earnings that came in less than expected is up like $10 million, then we would have been talking with the city and probably many of our other clients about talking to the retirement system and saying, you really gotta affect some change with this discount rate. It's not there. June 30, 22, your proportional share of the deferral was about $2.4 million. Don't think that's out of line. That's why I'm comfortable with the 6.75. A year from now, if that to me is the one number to watch when assessing the appropriateness of assumptions, is the deferred inflow or deferred outflow associated with investment earnings. If that grows, one way or the other, that means there's something that could be wrong with the assumed discount rate.
Okay.
Some of the other assumptions that go in there are mortality rates. Those things, the actuarial community does a very good job of updating those assumptions. I don't want to say annually, but every few years, they get updated. And those are two of the biggest contributing factors to what the overall liability is the mortality rates and what investment earnings are going to be. I hope that was helpful.
It was very helpful, I thought. I'm happy to defer to my colleagues here with questions.
Have to read it.
No. Looks like they're satisfied, Scott and Andrew. I want to thank you for your time this evening and the work you put in.
Thank you very much, and again, I want to apologize, we thought the meeting was tomorrow night, and I'm glad we were able to zoom in to accomplish what we need to accomplish tonight.
No problem. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I have a couple of notes for the audit.
Oh, did you have
Not
questions?
for them, not
Oh.
for them, just for you guys.
Oh, okay, right now?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
We
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wanted to, they're gone, but I'll still thank them. Yeah, Scott and Andrew for their work. Their team did a nice job. I wanted to just make a quick mention to Glenn, the finance department, for their work going into this. It's weeks of work working with them, and they did a great job. But prior to a couple of the two recommendations, we have been demoing software system, not knowing that these were going to be the recommendations that actually will address both of these reconciliation issues, and that our intention is to part of our future purchase. So we were ahead of that, and we're really happy with that. I'm going to pass it off to Glenn for just a couple of minutes. He had a couple of things that we want to talk about just on our share of what we did for you guys, and certainly, I think I heard Council Bogart say there's a lot to read before the questions, so please, I know you won't get them tonight, that's fine. Share them with us, and we'll make sure we answer them publicly, so your questions can get answered.
Thank you, Kurt. I'm afraid I'm going to start out by repeating a lot of what he said, except with one correction, is it's not weeks, it's months. We'll probably start working on the audit for FY '24, of course, which ends in a few months. We'll probably start working that in September or October, working toward making a similar presentation next spring. I also want to express appreciation to Markham and their professionalism in dealing with this. I always say we have a better financial system because there's somebody looking over our shoulders telling us what we need to do to make it better. And when you hire folks like that and they give you suggestions and give you recommendations, it pays to listen to them. And we've already started working on those, on the recommendations I had this year to bring them into fruition. Because the audit's coming so late this year, which is directly attributable to what Scott had mentioned as far as the worker shortage within the auditing field, they're in the same position the rest of us are. We're working toward getting those resolved this fiscal year, but we're already in month 10 of this fiscal year, so there's a lot of work in a short time, but we're going to do that. As Kirk had mentioned, we're investigating getting a new financial system. The financial system we have now, we've had for 20 years, and in terms of automated financial systems, a lot has changed in the last 20 years, not only, of course, in the technological, but also, as you can see, we're up to GASB 101. I can tell you 20 years ago, we were nowhere near GASB 101, And every type rule that comes out is another level of complexity that's added to the gas fee item. So we're really counting on a lot of this new software to be able to help us implement within the staff that we have these roles, and you'll be hearing a lot about that in the budget. So I had two things I wanted to really focus on today, and Scott McIntyre kind of covered one of them pretty well, and that is the unassigned fund balance. As he said, it's up from last year, which is generally a good thing. It is at about 5.3% of our general fund, which is within the range of what's considered healthy. It's on the lower end of what's considered healthy, but we're facing a lot of pressures one way or the other between inflation and tax cap and such. But I feel we're moving in a good direction as far as fund balance for right now. The other item, just want to call your attention, what the ACFR that you have before you is to a large extent the audit. But there's also a lot of tables and information that are part of the financial report that are not part of the audit. Many of those start on page 91, where we have a list of probably about a dozen and a half statistical tables covering net position, fund balances, expenditures, assessed valuation, property taxes, all the way down. And there's a lot of good historical information there that tells where this places this into the context of where we've gone over the last 10 years. The main thing I wanted to talk about tonight is, because the other item with fund balance, but also with debt, and what level of debt we're carrying as a city. Call your attention to page 102. And now we're looking at the big numbers at the middle of the page. Where we're looking at historical analysis of bonded debt per capita. And you'll see down at the bottom and in the chart in FY '23, where we're carrying about $37 million in debt right now, which is low and heading downward from where we have been in the last couple of years, and carrying a per capita debt level within the city of Laconia of just over $2,000, which is the lowest it's been as we go back 10 years in this table. So I think that's a very good place to be in, and where we are. And of course, a lot of that just follows cycles as to where we are in the individual bonds, but I think we're in a good place. Now, if you turn the page to 104.
Glenn, can I stop you there just
Sure.
for a second?
Yes.
I hate to do that to you.
Yep.
So on page 102, we see net bonded debt per capita. And you know, the graph makes perfect sense. And looking at the per capita debt between 2014 and 2023, we see a decrease, particularly when compared to 2015, which is got to be good. But how does the average taxpayer, or just the average mayor, city councilor, know? The trend analysis looks positive, but how do we know if where we stand as per capita debt is good or bad? Where's the benchmark on this? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You know, where's the benchmark where generally accepted accounting practices or might say, well, on a city this size, with these types of obligation, you should be looking at per capita debt of X. Does that even exist?
I'm not, if I, yep. So I'm not really sure we have a benchmark on per capita debt. What we have is a benchmark on debt as a percentage of expenditures. And that's what it's saying is on 104, where we have where we go into what the legal debt limits are for the city. And that's where we generally focus on as far as, I look at the per capita debt as a useful benchmark. But where we're really looking at the health of the city, it's the percentage of debt expense we have as a percentage of our overall expenses. and what level of debt we're carrying with that.
Okay, all right. You don't, maybe another time, it would also seem to be relevant to the amount of revenue the city has too, as far as how much, what your per capita debt is. Understand how overall expenses is okay, but that's expenses, and we should be controlling expenses, but expenses only make sense to me when you look at the revenue and how you're trying to be able to pay for those expenses. But
Yep.
I'm not an accountant, I don't need to get tedious about this,
Well,
but.
You know, I have a tendency to just jump right into the weeds, and I think that'd be a good analysis to perform, especially within the, because you'd want to back out all the special revenues, all the grants and such, and look at debt as a percentage of tax base, which is what
Right.
we're going through with that.
Right, yeah. Anyway, just a thought, and I'll keep my mouth closed now.
I appreciate that, thank you. Not about you keeping your mouth shut, about the.
I heard you loud and clear.
Actually, what I'm thinking of is now, you know, because I say we're going into this new financial system, and I'll say, well, now I have another thing we can ask them to make the system do for us. And, yeah, I'm looking a lot on that.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
and I
welcome.
would think your per capita is gonna be affected by your population too. If
Well,
our
yeah, because,
population
and they're
grows.
floating the debt, they're not
Right.
paying for it, right, so I mean, that's why
Exactly.
I'd say if we were a city of, anyway, the population would be
Right.
a variable I think is important, yes.
I won't go do a lot of math on the next page, page 103, but here's where we calculate what our legal debt limit is. And in general, just broad statements, 3% of our assessed value, of our base assessed value, which comes up in our case, of about $123 million would be our debt limit. If you turn the page, I'm happy to report we are nowhere close to that number. The percentage of the debt that we have issued in relation to what we can legally issue, the city is sitting at about 19% right now. The school is sitting about 4.3%. And the city is down quite a bit from prior years, if you see on 104. 2 years ago, we were at 32%, now we're at 19. So I think the city and the council, everybody working together, doing a good job of managing our debt and giving us a lot of room to work in there. And other than that, I'd just like to finish up by, just acknowledging, Finance Department kind of takes the lead in preparing these items, but it's every single department in the city is responsible for sound fiscal management, and every single department in the city and all city employees kind of step up to make sure we keep that standard. So I just wanted to say that and acknowledge and thank all those employees.
Mr. Smith, I, for one, go by the parking lot and have on the weekends all the time. And more often than not, I see your car in the parking lot. And I know you're in here working away on this stuff. So thank you for the level of dedication you put in.
Thank you,
For this work.
appreciate that.
Go right ahead.
Just a quick question on page 104. I'm just wanting to clarify what you said so I can understand. The city legal debt limit was 123,535,000, and we are currently only using 23 million, give or take a few $100,000, of that 123 million. So that's saying that we have an unused capacity of 99 million,
That is correct.
and that's bonded money? Or is that total, or they're both the same? Bonded money and debt?
They're both the same. We're using those terms in, so debt, I mean bonds, that's correct.
Okay, so then we have about 19% of the 3% is being used.
That's correct.
Okay. Just trying to make sure I understand it correctly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions? move on to item number 9, which is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If there's anyone here who would like to speak to something that's not on tonight's agenda, now would be the appropriate time.
That would be me. So Brad Fitzgerald, I own property on Hounslow Avenue, and we have an encampment, homeless encampment across the street that is affecting my property, affecting my business, affecting my tenants. And I just want to bring it to your attention. I'm sure you know of it. I don't know what you have any plans to do about it, if you have any in the future. If not, I just wanted to let you know that I'm dissatisfied with what's going on. They're coming on my property, they're charging their cell phones, they're taking my water, they're dumpster diving in my dumpster, they're building fires on my property, and it's getting out of hand. And we need to do something. I understand it's a touchy issue. I understand you move them from here, they just go to there. But it is affecting me, my business, and my tenants.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. I hope you received my email this weekend.
I did, thank you very much.
Certainly, this is, if I were in your shoes, I might find myself standing up here and doing just what you're doing, because I would be a little frustrated, to say the least. I don't think anyone in this city is not affected by the housing situation across the board, whether it's people experiencing homelessness in an encampment or living on the streets, or whether you're just a working person trying to find a place that's affordable. I mean, it's across the board. Not that those folks are impacting your business, and I don't mean to be
Right.
callous about that. I don't think that I am, but I hear you loud and clear. We are,
So I don't know where to go from
we're
here.
trying a lot.
On my end, they're gonna continue to keep coming. I talked with my dumpster provider. They're gonna provide a dumpster that locks. I figure if they can't get in it, then maybe they'll stop coming. I put on shut-offs on all my outside water so that they don't take my water anymore. You know, I've had to haul abandoned cars off my property. I have people sleeping in their cars on my property, selling drugs on my property. I have cameras. The police say they're gonna come in and do a drive-through at night. Well, this was Friday morning, I talked to them. They haven't come through and done a drive-through yet. And they've told me this 3 or 4 times, and they don't follow up on what they say. So at this point, I'll sleep with my phone next to my bed, and when my Ring alarm goes off at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning, I'll call the police, and maybe that will get their attention. But I don't want to be woken up. I've been ignoring it for years, but I can't ignore it when they're starting fires on my property. Thanks for your time.
I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Fitzgerald. I really am, and
No, I just wanted to stand up here and let you know where I stand.
I think you've made it clear too, and I think now the city manager has heard and maybe can follow up with the chief as well. And
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
anyone else? Okay. Moving on to public hearings, item number 13A, public hearing resolution 2024-08, acceptance of funds from a charitable trust, the Jensen Benevolent Fund, in the amount of $25,000 to fund the development of a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the March 27th, 2024 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. Action on this item may be taken up later on this evening under unfinished business. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:52 p.m. Anyone who'd like to speak to this matter, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing at 15 seconds after I opened it. Still 7:52. Item number 13B. Public hearing, ordinance 2024-235-15, amending Chapter 235 zoning relative to Article 3, Chapter 235-15, official zoning map. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the March 27th, 2024 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. Action on this item, once again, may be taken up under unfinished business. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:52 p.m. If someone would like to speak to that, now would be the appropriate time. Welcome, Attorney Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Attorney Ethan Wood with Normandin, Cheney and O'Neill, and I'm here on behalf of my client, Kevin Morissette, who's a property owner on Old Prescott Hill Road. And we are in favor of the proposal that the city has come up with to change the zoning in this area from RR to RA. We think it will help alleviate some, or it provides the possibility of helping to alleviate some of the issue with regard to the housing in this area, as it does permit increased density. So my client is in favor of it, and we hope that the council approves this later in the meeting.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:53 PM. Move on to agenda item number 13C. Public hearing, request to designate city-owned property on Lafayette Street, parcel number 444-12617, as conservation land. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the March 27, 2024 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, offices of the SAU. Action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business later on this evening. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:54 PM. If you'd like to speak to that matter, now would be the appropriate time. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dean Anson, I'm the chairman of the Conservation Commission, and we requested that this be turned into conservation land. What I've done is I have a couple of maps here that I would like to pass out so that you can see where this is relative to the rest of things that are going on in the city. So there's one of them, here's the other one. Thank you, Glenn. So I became aware of this property about a year ago when one of the residents called and told me that there was a vernal pool on this property, and that there were some trails through it. So I went and visited the site with him, and the Conservation Commission became interested because of the vernal pool, which is an unusual, uncommon type of wetland in the city. So vernal pools, and the Conservation Commission has passed out this brochure that was developed by New Hampshire Fish and Game, and it talks about vernal pools, and it's pretty straightforward, I think, but it's my forte, so that's why it's straightforward. So vernal pools are seasonal. They will start filling with water in the autumn, and they will stay with water. They'll have water in them until late in the summer. At that time, they typically dry out, depending on how much precipitation we get. And one of the major characteristics is there are no fish in the pools because they dry out. So these pools are used by, in particular, amphibians, salamanders, frogs, toads, to breed. And they lay their eggs there, and they live in those pools until they develop legs and can walk out of the pool, and then they go out into the surrounding habitats, and that's where they spend the rest of their lives. And then in the following spring, they typically come back to that pool, and they will repeat the process. Insects do similar things. They may not come back there, but they come, they lay their eggs, they go through their larval transition, and then they will, as adults, they'll leave. And so we're typically talking about dragonflies and mosquitoes, and so these in particular, the amphibians will use up to 300, 600 yards away from where the vernal pool is. That's where they live for the rest of their lives, and until they come back to breed again. So the one on Lafayette Street is, I was there just before the last snowstorm. I did not see any salamander eggs, and I did not hear any frogs calling. So I was concerned, so I called some of the people I know in other parts of the state. I called the lady who's the chairman of the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions and asked her what her experience was and what she knew about what was going on, in particular up in the Lakes region this year. And she said, well, we're behind schedule. We're behind schedule, well, not really behind schedule. We are behind in that salamanders are not out yet because we got these 2 big snowfalls and they just haven't come out. Frogs, same thing. So I don't know when they're going to come out, but certainly the warm weather the next few days and the rain will encourage them to come out. So I talked to probably 3 or 4 other biologists in the state and asked them, you know, what their experience was. Down south, the salamanders are laying eggs and the frogs are out. I also looked at about a half a dozen other vernal pools in the Laconia area, and same thing. No salamander eggs, no frogs calling. So, but that doesn't mean it's not gonna happen, it's just hasn't happened yet. So the city regulation is that we have a 100-foot buffer around vernal pools. And the 100-foot buffer starts from the edge of the water of the vernal pool and it goes out. So in this particular case, because the vernal pool is not round, this is not going to be a circular buffer. The buffer will follow the borders of the vernal pool.
Dean, can I stop you there? Where's the vernal pool located on this map?
The vernal pool is located on the western side of the property.
You're not
So-
helping me. Is it closer to the Woodland Heights portion?
No, that's
property line?
that's the north side. The north side is the Woodland Heights,
So that's north,
right.
that's south, west,
So it's on the,
east. So it's gonna be on the left. If
I'm sorry,
Woodland
it's,
Heights
I'm
is here,
sorry.
north,
I always
south,
get
east, west.
east and west confused.
Sure.
It's on the right-hand side. So it's on the eastern side, right?
It's on the eastern side.
It's on the eastern side.
And which way does it run? Does it run north-south at all, or does it just sit there?
It just sits there. It's just a pool. It has no inlet and it has no outlet.
And does it go from one property line to the street? Does it cover the whole width of that parcel?
It does not go all the way to the street. It's maybe 30 or 40 feet north of the street. That's where it starts. And then it spreads out east and west and goes toward Woodland Heights School.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, as requested by the council, we did contract with a wetland specialist to actually draw out the mapping. I was hoping, I left this on the agenda tonight. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get out yet. It should be done this week. His plan was the week of the 8th. We were hoping to get it done for today. It just didn't work out with the weather. So
Okay.
what Dean's saying, but we are getting it actually drawn as well.
So what we have here is helpful to start, but when
have
they
more
draw
coming,
the actual
yeah,
pool in there. And my only question on this is that, does this vernal pool preclude using that parcel for anything?
I don't know
Any structure?
I don't know the answer to that question because I don't have the lot lines, and I don't know when the wetland scientist gets done doing his survey, that's when you'll have the answer to that question. But in either case, the amphibians that use this pool are going to go 300 to 600 feet from the edge of the pool. And the lot is only 200 feet wide. So they're going to exceed that, and they're going to go into the wooded area that is between the vernal pool and Woodland Heights.
Okay.
I understand that there was a suggestion that you carve off the portion that is outside the buffer. And what I'm saying is that the amphibians are not gonna just stay within the buffer,
You can't train them,
you know?
put up signs? I don't,
They train Kermit. I mean, come on, we could do this. Okay, so, I understand you don't have that report, and
Not
that,
yet.
that certainly will be very helpful. And, I think, so, let me just cut to the chase here. I think that this, when an applicant comes to the Conservation Commission, and they have a wetland on their property, we will work with them to see if we can make suggestions that will help them reduce the impact on those wetlands. So I think that this property provides an opportunity for the city to illustrate that, yes, we do take our wetlands seriously. And so it would be a good learning experience in terms of being able to say to an applicant, this is what we do, and we would like you to do the same thing.
but the applicant coming to you is thinking about developing that land and preserving the vernal pool.
That's right.
How do you, okay, so,
And we had an applicant that we worked with over on Endicott Street. And we did exactly that.
okay.
So I think this is an opportunity for the city to create a pocket park. We have pocket gardens here in the city. This would be an opportunity to create a pocket park.
So, yeah, and like, I keep interrupting you, this is your testimony, not
It's okay.
mine. You know, from my perspective, and I don't know everything about this parcel, though I've been by there a couple of times, you know, our desperate need of housing in the city. You know, we look at a parcel like this, and it's close to Woodland Heights, and it's in a nice neighborhood, and I think, you know, there's opportunity there. But how do we balance that opportunity and take advantage of it and respect the environment that we're building in? So,
I understand that, and so I've been an environmental guy all my life. I spent my teenage years and younger in the swamps of New Jersey. So this speaks to me. It speaks to
you
me.
and Bruce Springsteen, so
Huh?
you both come out pretty well.
Right, and I think this provides also an opportunity for there to be a teaching moment where teachers could take their students out to the vernal pool and see what goes on there. And I would make a commitment that I would personally help the teachers do that. So, anyway, that's,
It might be a nice parcel of land for a teacher to be able to rent a home there or have a home there as well.
I understand,
So, I mean, it might be a good opportunity to do both things.
right.
Thank you, Dean.
Okay,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it, yeah. Anyone else like to speak to this? Welcome.
How you doing, Mr. Mayor, council members? My name's Brett Belleville, Ward 5. I was that citizen that notified the Conservation Commission because after sitting on the planning board for 6 years, I kind of saw the push and pull that goes on with the wetlands. And a lot of times when it comes down to the black and white of it, you look at, say, the wetlands, a 50-foot buffer off of it. Okay, we're gonna let you go a foot into it, or okay, you're building, you're developing this land, you're staying outside of the buffer, that's all great. But a lot of times you don't look at the big picture, that wetland and that 50-foot buffer just keeps you out of the wetland. If you alter that terrain around it, sometimes that affects that wetland. I worked in the mining industry for a while, and we had mines out in Utah, 50 foot from the wetlands, fine. They'll let you mine all around it and leave the wetland and a 50-foot buffer as an island. Nothing's running into it anymore. After a year, it's not a wetland.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the bigger picture. And I think the fact that the state requires a buffer twice as large for vernal pools as it does for wetlands goes to address the importance of them. When we first moved up there on Lafayette Street the first fall, when we were cleaning our yard, we found a spotted salamander. Took pictures of it, took it across the street to where we figured it belonged. Then I started looking, the kids wanted to know what kind of salamander it was or whatever, so looked at Fish and Game, found out, hey, you know, they track these things. There's a map in New Hampshire of spottings. Let's check it out. Laconia was not on there. So I reached out to Fish and Game. They got back to me, send us pictures so we can identify it properly, send us the address and the spot where you found it. And now Laconia is on that map because I sent them the thing that this salamander probably came from this pool. When I reached out to the Conservation Commission, I didn't call it a vernal pool technically. I said potential because it has to be looked at by the wetlands guys. And they are the ones that delineate it. Same as the wetlands. You can go out there some years, and depending on the amount of snow that we've had and the rain in the spring, and that thing is one huge lake. You can go out in some of the years where we haven't had that much snow and not that much precipitation in the springtime, and it's 6 or 7 smaller ones. It kind of straddles, I wasn't sure when I first started looking at this what property it was really on, but it straddles the city property, the parcel to the east of it that's undeveloped, and there's a portion of it that's also on the Woodland Heights School property. So it saddles all 3 of those. Yeah. And I think once it's actually mapped out there, and it could be that the wetland scientist comes back and says, no, I don't consider that a vernal pool. But just the fact that it's there every spring for a few months, the peepers are out there, the salamanders are out there, and then it disappears in the summer, kind of lends itself to a vernal pool. So they'll go out there, they'll determine if it is or it isn't, they'll map the boundaries of it, and then you can see how to do it. But like Dean was pointing out, those amphibians that use that area to breed, they don't just stay in that area. They use the stuff, the area around it to live. And it's kind of the same thing that I was pointing out with the wetlands. You can keep out of the wetland buffer, but if you affect all of the area that drains into that wetland, you're affecting that wetland.
Gonna dry it up. Yeah.
So, and I had done a little letter, submitted pictures and everything to the Conservation Commission. I'm sure if you wanted to, they could share that information with you, but I just wanted to say I was the one that had raised my hand because I saw the issues on the planning board and what people later down the line have to deal with when they want to develop. I mean, I don't know how many issues that I saw in front of the planning board where somebody bought a buildable lot back in the 70s, but now that wetlands came along, the wetland buffer was 25 feet, now it's 50 feet. Now it's not really a buildable lot anymore.
Yeah.
Except if you want to put a tiny house on there. So I just wanted to make sure, and I thought that it would be proactive for the city, and like Dean said, pretty much the city setting an example of, hey, this is what we want to do. And I understand there's a housing crisis in there. That's single-family residential, so you might get one house in there. Yeah, that helps the problem, but does it really?
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to speak up.
Yep.
If I might, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sure, go right ahead, sorry.
I'm looking forward to your application for one of the boards or commissions in the near future. If you're gonna start raising hell like this, you're gonna have to participate.
I will take that to heart, you know, and
Please.
maybe my participation will be showing up to every board meeting and making comments
We need
as a
you.
concerned citizen.
Fair enough.
Need you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anyone else like to speak to this matter? Well, hello.
Hello, Ethan Wood, attorney with Norman, Cheney and O'Neill. The only thing I am here to suggest is that the board table this pending the report that you all have already commissioned and paid for, so that we know exactly what the actual layout of the land is.
We'll take that under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing if there's no one else who wants to speak, we'll close the public hearing at 8:13 PM. Right now, I'd like to move agenda item 21B forward, and I'll move 21B and 21C. I have Marv Everson here, and I want to be conscientious of his time. 21B and 21C. Let's do those right now. Marv can leave. Agenda item 21B, release of an easement as requested by Laconia Airport Authority. A Guilford property owner has requested through his attorney that the easement that the airport has on his property be released. Upon seeking counsel from the Laconia Airport Authority's attorney, it was determined that the easement was no longer necessary and could be released. There's no cost to the city associated with this. Staff recommendation at a meeting on Thursday, March 21st, 2024, the Laconia Airport Authority authorized Andrew J. Hosmer to sign the release of easement as its chairman. So the Laconia Airport Authority is seeking approval from the City Council for Andrew Hosmer as mayor or Kirk Beatty as city manager to sign the release of easement on behalf of the city of Laconia. Marv, would just give us a quick thumbnail on this?
Yep, this is property now known as Gunstock Acres. But back when the beacon was installed on that hill, which I don't know that it had a particular name for that hill, the beacon is now on Sagamore Road, up on one of the highest points on that hill. When it was installed there, I believe around 1960, the property was owned by one man. The power source ran from Cherry Valley Road all the way up to the beacon. And the airport at that time purchased an easement from the owner of that property, a single owner, to run that power line from the road all the way up to the beacon. So that easement covered the entire property. Today, that property has, what did Janetti say, 300 or so homes known as Gunstock Acres. And the power source for that beacon is on the property where the beacon is. The easement is no longer needed for that entire property. The homeowner recognized that and asked if that easement could be released. We looked into it and determined, yes, it could be released. So going through the proper legal channels, we have a release for that easement for now the mayor to sign on behalf of the airport.
So you say the power's on the property, does that mean it's solar, or how does it
Oh,
actually?
no, meaning because when all the homes were built, they ran power to all of the homes.
Okay,
So the meter, for that beacon is immediately on the property where the beacon is located.
so there's no easement needed by the power company?
Just on that one property.
Okay.
Okay, so stay with us, Marv. We'll go to the next one. Right now, I'm looking for a motion to move to authorize Andrew J. Hosmer, mayor, or Kirk Beatty, city manager, to sign the release of easement on behalf of the city of Laconia as requested. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 21C. Lease agreement between the City of Laconia / Laconia Airport Authority and Runway 3517 LLC. This is a new lease with Dave Emerson, doing business as Runway 3517 LLC. The lease area is Development Zone Number 9 on the new development area known as Crosswinds, adjacent to and inclusive of the closed runway at Laconia Airport. Mr. Emerson intends to construct hangars on the property. This is more or less a traditional lease agreement consistent with the leases of the ground leases on the airport right now. It's for a term of 40 years in length to be reviewed in 20 years to negotiate a new rate potentially. The agreed rate is 20 cents per square foot usable acre for the 2024-2025 fiscal year, with adjustments according to the December CPI urban each successive year. There's no cost incurred to the city. The revenue generated by this lease agreement amounts to $25,187.40 for the first year base rental, payable to the Laconia Airport Authority to be used for the operation of the airport. Staff recommendation, at its meeting on Thursday, March 21st, 2024, the Laconia Airport Authority authorized Andrew J. Hosmer to sign the agreement as chair. Laconia Airport Authority is seeking approval from the City Council for Andrew J. Hosmer to sign the agreement as mayor. The Crosswinds development is on an area called the Abandoned Runway. Which direction does that run? I always lose my east and west runs.
East, north-south.
It runs north-south. It's perpendicular to the main runway at the airport. It is not, has not been used for takeoffs and landings for,
Since 1990-ish.
quite some time, so it's now been referred to as the abandoned runway. There's opportunity there on the real estate to construct hangars, something that the airport has looked into now over the past year or more.
Yes.
At least. Dave Emerson brought it to the attention of the airport authority that he would be interested in perhaps building more hangars to accommodate his business. So that sort of got the ball rolling with the airport authority. We received significant federal funding for this with a matching payment of, was in 20% for the airport authority for this site work and road construction.
Well, it's part of the bill grant that we get funding for, so that is actually 90%.
90%, so it's only 10%, it's getting better. This is now a total of 9 parcels, is that correct now? 9 buildable?
That's correct.
9 buildable parcels. Dave has spoken that he would like one of them. The airport authority has voted to allow him to begin construction on this. And the idea is to get these lease agreements in place because the airport will take out a bond for the site work. The faster we get these agreements in place, the faster we can generate some revenue and make bond payments on it. But with something that the airport authority has worked diligently on for quite some time and feel pretty comfortable about the financial aspects of this, and this is the first one, and I'm thrilled to see Dave Emerson, quite frankly, expanding his business. So, right now, be looking for a motion to move to authorize Andrew J. Hosmer, mayor, to sign the lease agreement with Dave Emerson, DBA Runway 3517 LLC, as requested. So made by Councilor Bogert, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you, Marv.
Thank you.
Do you want me to sign this now so Marv can take it with him, or no?
I have to notarize that.
Fair enough. Okay. Tomorrow, Marv.
I'll pick it up in the morning.
Great. All right, moving on to the mayor's report. I won't just take just a couple of minutes right now. I'm sorry?
I'm present for 21A.
I don't think we've done 21A. We're gonna get you, we're going out of order.
Oh, good.
No problem. Mayor's report right now. There's one thing I just want to clarify for the council and perhaps for the public on this matter. There's been a couple indications in the local press, and a couple people have mentioned it to me out and about in the city, is that somehow the city of Laconia has somehow hardened its heart when it comes to the senior center that is located here on Main Street. And I just want to assure the public, we have not. And in fact, over the past many budget cycles before I even got here, probably maybe before any one of us got here, there's been an allocation every single year, at least going back to 18-19. 18 and 19, it was the city gave to the senior center $17,640. Following year, it went up to $18,000. Year after that, it went to $20,000. $20,000 again. Last year, we went up to $23,000. That was the budget cycle 22-23. And in 23-24, we went up to $25,000. So the first and foremost, as most people know, our senior citizen and our very important programs that go on at the senior center, like Meals on Wheels. It is a state-administered program funded by federal dollars and serves a really important purpose in this city. I can tell you, having visited there on a number of occasions, I don't know what we do without the senior center here. I don't know what our citizens would do who've come to depend on it, not just for a meal, but socialization, taxes, things of that nature. We will continue in the budgets going forward, I believe, to offer significant funding for their operations. It has come to our attention within the past year, year and a half, maybe 2 years now, that the demands on them when it comes to the Meals on Wheels program have increased significantly. Meals on Wheels, which go out 5 days a week, are prepared for the most part in Concord, then transported here to Laconia, where our Meals on Wheels drivers take those meals and get them out to our senior citizens around the community. It was brought to our attention that the more efficient way to do this would be to have a commercial kitchen here in the city of Laconia, so we wouldn't have to transport these meals from Concord here. I couldn't agree more. It makes good sense, and I have spoken to a number of counselors here who believe that's the case as well. What we have done just within the past few months is begin to organize a capital campaign to raise the funds necessary to pay for the commercial kitchen. As anyone who's done capital campaigns knows, it really does take a fair amount of planning. I've been fortunate enough to learn from some great folks on capital campaigns, those associated certainly with the theater to some extent, the Belknap Mill. We see what this community did for the Bank of New Hampshire field at the Laconia High School. This community has incredible capability to raise funds for very important projects that go on in this city. I think the senior center and their commercial kitchen is just one of those causes. I will say right now we're in the very early stages of planning and organizing, but we've brought in people who have experience in this area and have managed successful capital campaigns here in the city. So I just wanted to sort of correct the record as far as what this council has done, as far as making grants to the Laconia Senior Center, and also let people know that we will take a leadership role in the capital campaign to raise the funds so they can increase their capacity and the people they serve in this community. That would conclude my comments this evening. I also want to say too, I think it was just within the past year or so, we allocated some parking spots as well, for them as well,
Yep.
to make the parking easier for folks. So this is a good, strong relationship in the city, and I know that it will get stronger going forward. So that concludes my mayor's remarks this evening. I'd look to our councilors for council comments. Go right ahead. Councilor Boker, you raised your hand first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take the opportunity with this parcel of land on Lafayette Street. It's an opportunity in Ward 5 to have some green space available. They don't have a park. They don't have any of these types of amenities within Ward 5 itself that I'm aware of, other than Woodland Heights School. And so this would be an opportunity to take 1 acre of land that has this vernal pool associated with it and give it some discovery aspects of education and stuff for the students of the elementary school. And the other elementaries can take day trips or half-hour trips or something over to enjoy this during the springtime and stuff and see nature at its wonderful performance and how nature does work. I do understand that housing is at a premium, but so is green space. There's only so much density that you can pack into an area before it becomes an issue. So if you've got a little bitty acre of land that has this opportunity, then it might come out to be a plus side to have that green space for it. Thank you.
I mean, Counselor Bogart, anyone else? Counselor Jean?
I know the council's sick of me
No.
discussing,
No,
no.
we are not.
discussing wages and other items. The Finance Committee's worked with the manager, who I want to compliment him for the effort he and Glenn have put in to try and get us where we think we need to be. The reason I mention that is we have spoken about a stipend to help keep folks here until we get to the new fiscal year. I had lunch today with the police chief, who informs me that he has now 2 additional officers who are in the process of working, of being considered to work in other jurisdictions. And the issue is pay. One of them, perhaps both of them, told the chief that if the pay was higher here, they want to stay because they like Laconia. I just want to encourage the council, I believe I'm correct, and I'm sure the manager can correct me, but at our next meeting, we should have the numbers, I believe, to at least provide the stipend or whatever we call it. But we also, they're working on the pay scale and for June, July 1st, to try and get us back where we need to be. I'm looking here at the fire department, whose starting pay is $23.40. The average of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 communities is $23.98. Some of them, like Sanborn, is $24.20 for starting pay, and we're at $23.98. I hope we can, I don't hope, I believe the manager is going to get that number fixed for us. I could give you numbers from the police department that are very similar. My only point is, we're going to lose people if we don't do something to encourage them to stay. I'm hoping at our next meeting, we will have the, what are we calling it? 2,500?
Yeah, so we'll have numbers both for this fiscal year as some type of retention incentive, if we're able to. And then the next meeting that we have as full council, I'm presenting my budget anyhow, so we'll have FY '25 adjustments if applicable.
I'm sorry to keep whining about this, but we can't afford to lose the people we have. The firemen that we have, the medics and the EMTs do an outstanding job. I'd like to believe the police department, with some problems, down 8 at the moment, possibly down 10 before much longer, it's getting more and more difficult to do what they need to do. So I hope we can vote at the next meeting, at least for the incentive to try and tell people we're working to get them where they ought to be in the next fiscal year. Anything else I should?
No, if I could just make a comment, I just would like to say that certainly we've been approached to look at certain departments, but with the work that we've been doing, we're looking at everybody in the city as a whole. So I don't want employees to think you're looking at 1 or 2 departments. Certainly certain departments have unique challenges that we may have to address on an individual department by department basis, but that what we're looking at for any type of benefit analysis, we're looking at how we can affect all of our city employees, so I just wanted to make sure that was.
Shame on me for not saying that. I couldn't agree more. It's not just the public safety people, it's Public Works, it's City Hall, it's Parks and Rec. We need to take care of these people and keep them, because it's gonna get more expensive later to try and refill it. The second thing I'd like to mention very quickly, Mr. Mayor, is in the discussion I had with the police chief today, he asked if I would mention that he would like to come in and make a presentation with regards to the proposed pistol range. Oh, sorry. He'd like to make a presentation to the council on the proposed pistol range. They have a proposed location on city land, and he'd like to come in and run it by the council. So if we could plan that for the next meeting, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Cheney. Any other council comments? Councilor Haynes.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, I'm hoping it's done snowing, but hats off to the Public Works Department. They did a great job. Second, I was glad that the city could accommodate Plymouth State University. I think any time that the city can accommodate anyone enhances our image. Third, and certainly not least, it was reported that Becky Geyer was stepping down as the Director of Multicultural Days. She is staying on the committee, and I think in the last 15 years, we can all attest that she's done a remarkable job, and I think we owe her a lot of thanks for her great work.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any committee reports or liaison reports? Councilor Broder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a liaison report. Lakes Region Public Access, as I was appointed the city's liaison. I was also, by the Board of Directors there, elected to be the treasurer for the Lakes Region Public Access. So I just wanted to let that known. And also take advantage of this moment to say that the annual board meeting will be held on May 21st of 2024 at 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. The location will be here at City Hall in the Balduck Meeting Room, which is this room here. Some of the things they're going to hopefully look for is input from the public on improvements and changes of format or whatever that would be that could be necessitated by input from the citizens of the city, and we wish that everybody would come out and join us and give us their inputs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bogert. Moving on to agenda number 19. This is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. If there's an agenda item that we have yet to touch on or already touched on, you want to speak to it, now would be the appropriate time. Yeah, looks like he's fine. How about we move on to agenda item number 20, which is city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Included this month is your financial and operational trends report. You'll see the building construction numbers that we've been trying to reconcile. Seems like we use that word a lot tonight with numbers that we've been trying to reconcile as the year goes on. Have better current numbers. You see they're lower than expected. We have had more building construction than that going on in the city, but because of the type it's been or the ownership type, whether it be nonprofit, et cetera, our numbers are lower than what we would have expected to see. Fire and rescue data calls down a little bit this month. Staying busy, but still down. Public assistance data not staying down.
What did we budget for that? I'm sorry to jump in.
50,000.
Okay, thank you.
So, you know, we do have in next year's budget plan an increase in that, but we're not seeing, as you can see, the last couple of years, a lot of that was COVID money. We had a lot more reimbursements, which we don't have really any this year. So that number's staying pretty consistent, and a lot of that is long-term support that we're giving a few people. Police department activities on the next page, again, down a little bit from this month last year, but still busy. Property tax collection is where we would expect it to be at this time, as is overtime. As we talk about with the overtime, you know, each time, the more fully staffed we are, the better. And we see those numbers as ebb and flow, especially with the fire department, but the police department as well, based on staffing levels. Vehicle registration is again where we would expect it. Parks use normal. All of our grievances that we were handling have been reconciled and those are taken care of. Both were reported out last month for low cost. Impact fee revenues has new revenues, but not, we haven't had any requests to take money out of those, as the same with the reserve fund balances. Boat taxes, where they generally are at this point, I went back and looked just to kind of make myself feel a little bit better and confirm our April, May, June, where we'd expect them to go up. In the last few years, significantly go up in those last quarter of the year, so not really too surprised where we stand. Revenue and expenditures look good for where we are. It's been requested on the last, the next page, sorry, the EMS billing report. If you look at the second column in from the left, you'll see the total number of billable trips is decreasing. There's been a couple of lean months as far as total trips that they've taken, requested for the ambulance. But when you look at overall the payments and then what we have balance due, assuming we get the majority of that balance due, because the write-offs have already been taken care of, it'll still put us into a good position. We were asked to put together a presentation, just trying to get it into the right month. I think with probably the next meeting this month, it'll be too busy of a meeting. So we're planning on the first meeting of next month to have a presentation with this, not only to look at the trend since we've taken over the billing, when we took over the ambulance from the hospital billing, but also some potential rate increases which haven't occurred in, I believe, 4 years now. And there's also some legislation that we're looking at that we're following closely as well. And on the last page, I thought we were done. I was wrong. A couple of snowstorms last month, but we're still, both our winter maintenance account and our outside contract lines are still very healthy. Certainly have overspent our overtime, but when you look at all that as one package, we're doing very well in those, and it was quite a busy couple of weeks, especially this last storm.
Thank you, Kirk.
So I have one other thing. We hadn't really discussed it, but my guess is Councilor Hoffman would report out on this in liaison. We had the first meeting of the committee to study the aggregation of electric supply. So we had the presentation from Community Power Coalition in New Hampshire, and then we formed the committee to look at this. They had their first meeting last week, went really well. They discussed the layout of the committee. The other piece of it that they explored was other options, Community Power is one selection. There are some other selections. The committee has taken it upon themselves to want to explore those other options, just to make sure that they're choosing the right agency to bring back in front of the council. The next meeting is still to be determined. We are working, we'll have our attorney at that one. He's done a lot with multiple other communities in this realm across the state, and we'll have a lot of good information there as well. So I think the committee is going to work quickly. They want to get this back to recommendations in front of you, I would guess by summer at the latest, so we can keep this moving forward. So we hadn't talked about if he was going to report out on that, but where he's not here, I figured I'd let you know just kind of where that stands.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Okay, thank you. Moving on back to new business, 21A. Want to walk us through this, Kirk? The Belknap Area Market Management?
Sure. So this is a request. They're going to be doing a farmer's market up in the Weirs for the summer and into the fall. They are looking to waive the special events fees and licensing fees, which total at $500. They are not currently a nonprofit organization, which isn't a requirement to do this, but certainly something that you guys lean to a lot. They are working towards that. It's just a new business that hasn't had an opportunity to do that as of yet. So that's what they're looking to do. They'd like to have the fees waived, and it falls to you guys for that. That does not include the parks fees and all those. Those are still being applied.
What are those fees that are being applied?
I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head.
Sure, come on up. I have been a little concerned about waiving fees for other than nonprofits.
That's why I want to bring that up.
And that's anyway, introduce yourself if you like.
Sure. My name is Paul Garreau. I'm the founder of Belknap Area Market Management. My wife and I run a farm and bakery not far up the road on Route 106. I can give a little background if that helps, or
That's
Sure.
okay. Sure.
Okay. So for us starting our businesses, farmers markets were basically essential. You have a few vendors right here on Main Street, a few brick and mortars. They got their starts at farmers markets. That's Centipede, Catch Penny, and the Good Natured Juice Bar. We have seen the need for this not only in Laconia but in other towns in the county. We're also starting markets in Meredith and in Tilton as well. So being our first year, obviously the expenses are fairly high. The vendor count will be relatively low compared to future years if things go well. As was mentioned before, I did plan to run this as a nonprofit. It turns out it's very hard to get 5 people who want to volunteer a lot of time for very little money. So for now, I'm running this as a benefit corporation. It doesn't suddenly mean that it's very profitable. It's a farmer's market after all. The fees in question are a $200 application fee, as well as a $300 license for an organized outdoor event. I believe if I was a nonprofit, that would go down to $150.
Paul, have you filed with the Secretary of State to be a B Corp?
Yes, it is a registered business.
A
B Corp is
registered
slightly
B Corp?
B
State
Corp
of
is
New
slightly
Hampshire?
different, but it is a benefit corporation.
So it's not formally registered as a B Corp?
It's a different terminology that I can back up and explain. So the state of New Hampshire recognizes benefit corporations, which I am registered as. B Corp is a third-party certification that shows that I am doing from an outside perspective what their definition of a B Corp should be doing. It's not required by the state of New Hampshire to be a certified B Corp.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's okay. I think I said everything I meant to say.
Any questions, Mr. Garreau?
Yeah, what were your fees with Parks and Rec?
Originally, it would have been $150 per day for 18 market dates, and they were able to reduce those to $50 per market date.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I guess, do you charge your vendors?
I do. There's a sliding scale based on the number of dates that they attend. A full-time vendor would be obviously present at the majority of market dates. That's $20 per market. It's $25 if they're half-time vendors, and it goes up to $35 for occasional drop-in vendors. And that's in line with other, maybe not markets in the immediate area, but towards the seacoast and Concord and other fairly large markets.
Yep. And I get you have expenses, advertising, whatnot, so.
Quite a few. Yep.
Do you intend, one question I have here is that if you have vendors showing up and selling food to go, you would then be in competition with, say, the restaurant in the Alpenrose Plaza or the places down by the beach. So I want to make sure that it's a level playing field and bringing in other people, not charging you anything, but letting other vendors come in and maybe take some of the business away from the brick and mortar places that need the strong summer months on Saturdays.
Right, so we do have one food truck per market date. I don't charge them to be there. They're seen as something that attracts people to the market.
Yeah.
The other vendors will be selling, local baked goods, farm products, meats. There'll be some craft vendors, but a smaller percentage. Getting off the point.
Is there a fee that the truck has to pay to the city? Permit or?
I might not be familiar with all the permitting they need. They do need a Class D or
Or that
F.
goes under Parks and Rec? Do they have to
I
get a
don't
permit?
believe they
or-
do.
It was fully encompassed in
Yep.
the
Okay.
one
Yeah.
event license fee of the $300.
But they may or may not need a Class D or F license through the state to be a food truck
Right.
vendor. Yep.
A clarification, so we would be waiving the food truck fee also as part of this $300?
That $300
It's encompassed.
is the one, it's an event license that would cover all the vendors, up to 20 vendors, and then his music, his outdoor loudspeaker. It's a full event license, so it would cover if you waive that fee, then the food truck would not pay.
And that's,
Otherwise, the fee is, for a food truck is $50 per month for a regular food truck.
So would that $50 they would pay for the month encompass like 4 farm things? 4 of your markets? Are they consecutive weekends?
Yes, they would be. Yep. And I do hope to have food trucks at every market. So it would be approximately 4 per month.
So it would cover them for those 4
Well, we
Saturdays?
would look at each business individually, so they would have to apply for that, either the month or the week or whatever that they're vending. It would be each one individually, where this is a blanket event license.
it's a special event, so everything's encompassed in one fee.
But if we were to strip out that one fee,
Yep, then they would,
then they would pay their $50 and then they would be covered for the month.
depending on if they were a reoccurring, if it was like one food truck and then a different one, they were looked at separately, so they would be each, whether it be 1 week or if they were coming for four weeks at a time.
If you had 4 different food vendors, that would be $200.
Correct.
Or if you had one food vendor for an entire month, it'd be $50.
Do you have the same food truck that's gonna be there? You said you had one.
At the moment, it's 1 per market date, but I think at the moment there's 4 or 5 total food trucks that will be cycling through. But I do see the point that you're making, and if I had known, I probably would have charged them to come to the market. It would make sense.
What's the council thinking here?
Well, I'm thinking this, it's been approved by Parks and Rec. I go to all the Parks and Rec meetings, and they do a good job of what they do. It's been approved by Special Events Review Committee. I don't know if I want to waive both fees, but I wouldn't be opposed to waiving one of the fees.
So what's your motion look like, Counselor Felch?
I would like to motion to waive the $300 licensing fee and still get a special events fee of $200.
So right now, Counselor Felch is proposing a motion to move to approve the request to waive the $300 licensing fee relating to the Market at Weir's 2024 farmers markets. The problem with doing that, the individual vendors now will be paying the city for each visit.
Do they have to, even though it's under
They would have to
special
apply.
events?
No, because that would be up to you guys.
Wouldn't we be better to do the 300?
We would, because,
and-
Waive the
and
200?
Waive the 250.
and
Okay.
this is what we'll do, if
Okay.
it's okay with you.
Yep.
The total amount to do this is $500. Why don't we cut the total down to $250?
Okay,
We'll call it a licensing fee,
okay,
and that way
that works.
saves 50%, we still take in something, and it's a licensing fee, so we don't have to worry about the other stuff.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the motion right now is to move to approve the request to waive the $200 special events fee, and the licensing fee will be $250 relating to the Market at Weir's 2024 Farmers Markets. So maybe, Counselor Felch? Okay. Counselor Cheney? Any further discussion? Counselor Bogart, you good?
What does that do with the food trucks? Do,
They're covered. There's
They're
200, since it's a licensing and not a special events, it's covered.
And that's why I left the fee there. Yep.
Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by right hands. 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes, and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Laconia, Paul.
Thank you.
I did.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 21D, ordinance 2024-235-39-A, amending Chapter 235 zoning relative to Article 7 supplementary provisions, subsections 235-39A, general provisions, unsafe structures. This proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance will allow the city to take a more proactive and expedient approach to requiring remediation or removal of structures that otherwise may be left as ruins for an indefinite duration. The city manager, acting on behalf of the city council, submitted this amendment proposal to the Laconia Planning Board for review and recommendation. The planning board first considered the proposed amendment on March 5th, 2024. The board then held a public hearing for the proposed amendment at its April 2nd, 2024 meeting. There were no comments made by the public. Once the public hearing closed, the board voted unanimously to recommend to the city council for adoption of the proposed amendment. There is no direct or immediate fiscal impact to the city. The proposed change will allow the city to remove blighted structures that negatively impact safety, desirability, and property values within the surrounding neighborhood. Right now, there are a series of 3 motions before us. The first is, we're looking for a motion to waive reading of this ordinance in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. The second motion is a motion to move the first reading of ordinance 2024-235-39-A, amending Chapter 235 zoning relative to Article 7 supplementary provisions 235-39 general provisions as presented. Whew. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 4 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, on this matter, looking to move to schedule a public hearing on April 22nd, 2024, during the regular city council meeting to gather input prior to adoption. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Bogart. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving along to unfinished business right now. Agenda item 22A, Resolution 2024-08, acceptance of funds from a charitable trust, the Jensen Benevolent Fund, in the amount of $25,000 to fund the development of a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department. We have public, prior this evening, earlier this evening, we had the public input session on this matter. Captain Alan Grattan from Laconia Police Department recommends acceptance of the donation from the Jensen Benevolent Fund in that amount. This is also subject, well, won't be subject to, but we'll get some testimony at the next city council meeting from the chief to tell us where the proposed range will be. Right. So right now, we have a series of 3 motions here. First is to waive a reading of Resolution 2024-08 in its entirety to read by title only, so made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative, and that passes. Next, looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2024-08 relative to acceptance of funds from a charitable trust, the Jensen Benevolent Fund, in the amount of $25,000 to fund the development of a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Bogart. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, on this matter, looking for a motion to move to approve Resolution 2024-08 relative to acceptance of funds from a charitable trust, the Jensen Benevolent Fund, in the amount of $25,000 to fund the development of a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department as presented, and to authorize the city manager to sign all documents associated with this matter. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Bogart. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Continuing on with unfinished business, item number 22B. Ordinance 2024-235-15, amending Chapter 235 zoning relative to Article 3, Chapter 235-15, official zoning map. The area being considered for amendment currently encompasses several different residential apartment developments. This proposed change to the official zoning map will be consistent with the current use of the affected parcels and will spur greater development of residential housing. The planning board first considered this proposed change in February 2024, then held a public hearing on March 5th. There were 2 residents in support of the proposed change, and no one spoke against it. This amendment was most recently before the City Council at its March 25th, 2024 meeting. At that meeting, a motion was approved to schedule a public hearing. That public hearing was held earlier this evening, and we heard testimony and support. Right now, it's a series of 3 motions. The first is to move to waive a reading of this ordinance in its entirety, read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes. That motion is approved. Second, looking for a motion to move a second reading of ordinance 2024-235-15, amending Chapter 235 zoning relative to Article 3, Chapter 235-15, official zoning map as presented. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Finally, on this matter, we'll give our motion to move to approve ordinance 2024-235-15, amending Chapter 235 zoning relative to Article 3, Chapter 235-15, official zoning map as presented. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion on this? Yes, sir.
Just one question. There's along the 107 area, there's those warehouses and stuff that people work out of and whatnot. Will this have any adverse effect on those warehouses
No.
that are being used there?
Nope.
Okay.
Any other questions? Good. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Moving on to item number 22C, we're looking for a motion to table it. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Non-debatable. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion is passed, and this item is now tabled. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I'd like to adjourn this meeting at 9:01 PM. Thank you all. Katie, thank you for your assistance.